I'd like to now break down the question for a question 4 for paper 1, the evaluation question, and just show you how you should really approach that in your own exams. It's always really important to break down any question as part of the planning process, and this one is particularly important. There's lots of things that you need to look at very carefully, and one of the first things you'll need to look at is exactly where it is they would like you to take your evidence from. In this case, for the Z for Zachariah extract, it's read line 17, and it tells you that sort of first sentence until the end of the source. So I know I've got to take all of my main quotations and my main evidence from that second part of the source. And it says that you should focus your answer on that part. It doesn't mean to say that you can't go outside the confines of that line numbers in this case, because it says you should focus rather than you should only take your answers from this part of the source. But it really is important that most of your detailed analysis comes from that second part. Then they will always offer you some sort of statement, and it's important that you break down that statement, because sometimes there can be 2, even 3 things in there that you'll need to respond to. So after reading this part of the text, it is clear that the narrator and her family have experienced some awful things. The reader immediately empathises with them. So if we look at that statement, we need to break down exactly what it is saying. So the first part, it is clear that the narrator and her family have experienced some awful things. So you should, when you're evaluating, when making your judgments, you should be thinking, well, do they experience awful things? If they do, how do I know that? If you think, no, they don't experience anything awful, they experience something else, then of course you should be able to give evidence as to why you think that as well. There's another part of the statement though, and as I say, some of these statements can actually be made up of multiple ideas, usually around 2 or 3. And in this case, the reader immediately empathises with them. It's important that you address both parts of the statement, and it might be that you agree with one completely, but maybe not agree with the other, and that's absolutely fine to say that. And that gives you a nice little structure to your essay, of course. The first part I agree with, however, the second part I disagree with because. But if you want to agree with absolutely everything, that's fine, but you must address both parts of that statement. It's very easy to just focus on either the last part or just the first part and ignore the other bits. So in your answer, it should address all aspects of that given statement. It then asks you, to what extent do you agree? So do you agree a little bit? Do you agree completely? Do you partially disagree? And you need to make that really clear in your answer. And remember, whatever opinion you do hold, you must justify it with appropriate references to the text. The next little part offers you some advice, and you'll see it says you could include that. It doesn't mean to say that you have to include all of those things. It is merely the example giving you a little bit of advice. But if you did rely upon those bullet points, it would actually help you to formulate your answer. And you can almost use it as a little bit of a checklist if you like. And in this case, they said you could write about your own impressions of the family. So this is quite important, or at least your own impressions of what the family has experienced. That's quite important because, of course, if you don't agree that they've experienced some awful things, then this gives you flexibility as to think about, well, what have they experienced then? So you can use this really however you like. If you do believe they've experienced awful things, then you must articulate what exactly it is that they have experienced.